There was never a point that I even thought of telling the truth.
The police don't believe Vicky's story and ask Avril if the father could be a family member.
They asked me if I thought it could be Len, and I said, no, I'm sorry, no way. Just absolutely no way. And then they said, well, what about David? And I said, to be honest, I really don't know. I just didn't know.
But Vicky can't bring herself to tell the truth. A few months later, at the age of 13, Vicky gives birth to Kirsty.
There was no hate, no nothing, it was just love. I don't look at her and think David's daughter. I look at her and think my daughter.
Avril agrees to bring up Kirsty, and Vicky goes to boarding school to continue her studies. Over the next 3 years, David Jaggers keeps a low profile, but he remains a threat to women.
We know from sex offenders that the average age of first offence for a sex offender is about 23. And many sex offenders have had previous offences that they've not been caught for. So therefore, they go on to offend more and more. And the more that they get away with it, they learn from that behaviour. They learn how to offend. They learn how to control, how to manipulate.
Having got away with the rapes on Vicky, David Jaggers begins a relationship with a single mum of 2, Helen Mitchell, whose parents live opposite Avril.
This man, called Jaggers, David Jaggers, come to visit somebody in the flats who lived underneath my sister, and he sat out there all day and right till late at night, and then my sister, like being a kind person, went out there and said to him, "You're welcome to come up." Well, my sister didn't know anything about him, what he'd done to his own sister, because she wouldn't have let him in her flat if she knew he was an evil person. So she let him in, and then he sort of done the charm on my sister, and they ended up getting together.
Even though Helen was considered an outgoing, bubbly young woman liked by lots of people, people like David can seek out people's weaknesses. And in this case, that played out in an incredibly tragic way.
Jaggers was intelligent, and he was able to manipulate the people in his lives probably because of his intelligence. So he had the risk factors that made him a very violent and dangerous person, but he also had the intelligence and the glibness and the charm to be able to execute all this.
It's not long before David becomes violent towards Helen.
And then she started, like, a few black eyes here and there, and I used to say to her, "How'd you get there, Mel?" "Oh, I done that on the door," or "I fell." And then in my mind, I used to think, I know he's done that, but she used to say, no, don't be silly, of course he ain't. Sort of protecting him.
We were sitting eating dinner, and he just said straight across the table to her, "Shut your mouth. I can't eat with you with your mouth wide open. I don't want to see what you're eating in front of everybody."
The risk factors that we can see in Jaggers' behaviour towards Helen, the emotional abuse, the physical violence, combined with what's happened to Jaggers as a child, makes him a very dangerous character indeed.
Helen's 2 daughters, Tara and Lucy, are just 4 and 2 at the time.
I know my dad used to say he used to get a phone call to come down because he's broke Tara and Lucy's toys or nicked the money out the telly. I think he broke my mum's nose once, and he come down to help her, but she always got back with him. And my dad just sort of felt like there's only so much he could do, you know.
Her family would have wanted her to confide in them. But actually, how many of us are ready to say, my relationship's going wrong? How many of us think it won't happen again? She's a classic example of a really fantastic young woman who met the wrong man.
We see in his relationship with Helen that he demeans her, he humiliates her, he controls her, he tells her what to do, he puts her down in front of people, and these are all risk factors in domestic abuse perpetration.
Sheila's concerns over Jaggers were confirmed when her sister rings her, asking for help.
When I got there, he had this silver case, and I'll always remember as long as I live. It was a case with all different types of knives in it. And I said to him, "Before you put that knife through my sister, you'll put it through me first." He put all the knives back, put them in the case, and I said, "Helen, get your stuff, because you're coming home with me. And I took Tara, Lucy and Helen, and they come and stayed with me.
Tara remembers David Jaggers threatening her mum in front of her.
He had like a suitcase, and he opened the suitcase up, and there was like big knives, little knives, and he pulled the biggest one out and he put it up against my mum's throat, and he threatened her. That's all I really remember of that day. It was only a couple of weeks later that she was found dead.
I phoned the police and I said, my son's just told me he's killed his girlfriend.
He took my mum away. He done it, he's evil.
After committing incest on his 12-year-old sister Vicky, David Jaggers has moved on to his next victim, his girlfriend, single mum of 2, Helen Mitchell.
All I know is she was beautiful. Just by a photograph, I couldn't remember her voice or anything like that.
Jaggers' behaviour towards Helen is spiralling out of control.
There's verbal abuse, there's emotional abuse, there's humiliation, there's threats with knives, weapon use is a known risk factor, there's humiliation, there's sexual assault. You know, the risk factors are endless in Jaggers' history. Something tips him over the edge on that day.
When Helen comes home from a night out, Jaggers is waiting up for her. They start arguing.
I can see in my head as well, my mum trying to get to a door. She's running to the door, but he's pulling her.
He strangled her. He strangled my sister with his bare hands. And at the night he killed my sister, and my 2 nieces was in the house upstairs.
I was 2 years old when my mum was killed. I don't remember my mum at all. I have no memories of her.
But Helen's eldest daughter Tara is in the room watching.
I just remember saying to him, "Where's Mummy?" And he pointed to an armchair. She had her legs over one and her arm over another with her eyes shut, and the sheet was up to there. Right,
floppy arms.
Yeah. And he said, "Kiss Mummy and I'll take you to Nanny's." My last 2 memories of my mum kissing her, and she was asleep.
I think he's sick for making you kiss her.
He took my mum away. He done it, he's evil. How can you do that? And I know, like, sometimes you're in the heat of the moment, but there was 2 little girls in that house that night.
But Helen's daughters aren't alone. Her 14-year-old sister is also there. In another sickening act, Jaggers goes upstairs and has unlawful sex with Helen's sister. Then he takes Tara to his mum's, leaving Helen's dead body undiscovered.
I said to him, "What's the matter?" And he said, "I've killed Helen, I've taken her life."
For Dr. Kerry Nixon, David Jaggers' remorse is at odds with his violent behaviour.
But he seems incredibly mixed up. In one hand, he's controlling the victims, unbelievably. He's controlling, even to the point where he's telling the daughter to kiss her mother. He's showing no remorse after the rape of Vicky to his family members. They say that his behaviour isn't changing. But on another side, he breaks down.
Avril has to make a decision.
I phoned the police and I said, my son's just told me he's killed his girlfriend. He kept saying that he'd taken the little girls' mums away.
He took a relationship that a mother and daughter have, which I've never had.
Helen's death at the hands of David also has a huge impact on Vicky.
I felt guilty, scared, because that could have been me. Guilty because I should have said something sooner. He could have hurt Kirsty, he could have hurt me. So yeah, I made the decision to never say anything.
David is arrested by police and charged with the murder of Helen. In February 1990, 20-year-old David Jaggers pleads guilty to manslaughter and is sentenced to 6 years in prison. He's also convicted of unlawful sex with a girl and is given 6 months to run concurrently. But Helen's daughters will grow up never knowing their mum.
He took my mum away. And that's the most important thing in your life, really. Everyone's got a mum. Everyone.
Yeah, but it's different, because if your mum dies of, like, cancer or something like that,
You've got time to...
You can learn to deal with it. But when someone's took your mum away, it's a bit harder. Because it weren't her time then.
With David Jaggers behind bars for the killing of Helen Mitchell, Vicky feels safe enough to return home from boarding school and starts building her relationship with her daughter Kirsty.
She's always known that Vicky is her mum. I mean, we've never hidden it. It's always been there. Although, like, from then, she called me mum, she called Len dad, she called Vicky Vicky.
But this happy time was short-lived for the family. Vicky's beloved dad is diagnosed with terminal cancer, and David Jaggers is released early, having served just 4 years for killing Helen. David is back in Vicky's life, and the consequences are terrifying.
David come in one day and had a go at me, saying that I didn't care about my dad. And I actually turned around to him and said, "Why do you care? He's not even your dad." And he actually strangled me and turned me blue. That reinforced what he did to his girlfriend, and why I was so scared. That just put it in place. Like, I'm definitely never saying anything.
After the attack, Vicky cuts David out of her life and moves on, having 4 more children. She gets married to Kelly, and over the next 10 years has virtually no contact with her brother. But the threat posed by David to her and her family is never far away. 18 years after he raped his sister, David Jaggers is staying at his mum Avril's house, and Vicky's teenage daughters are also there visiting their grandmother.
I don't think Vicky realised that he'd been spending time at mine. His computer and everything was there because he'd lost his flat. And this particular day I got up and he was on the computer. And he obviously had been there all night. Vicky's girls were upstairs and they were all playing around, laughing and joking. And David got up and went and shouted at them. So they ran off home.
I was going absolutely mad, stomping up the road. I just know I wanted my girls out of there.
Get down here!
Because she was going up to obviously sort out what was going on. But she was going nuts at me, and I was turning round to her and I was saying, calm down, calm down. So, no, this is your brother. He's what are you worried about? So he's turned around and had a go at one of them. I was defending him.
It's totally out of context. It doesn't make sense. And to Kelly, her partner, this absolutely doesn't make sense. But he knows, because he knows her, he loves this woman, and he recognises there has got to be something more deep. There has got to be.
She was at the bottom of the stairs, screaming that he was there all night with her girls and she weren't going to have that. He weren't going to do it again. David was standing near the window and could hear a load of shouting downstairs. And David just turned round and he said, everybody's going to hate me now. And I went, why? Don't be daft. You know, love you. And he said, no.